Welcome, Color of Success podcast family. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Check out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color, where I share my experiences in the realm of mental health, both professionally and personally. Color of Success podcast is streaming on all your favorite platforms and socials. Whether you're on the go or comfy on the sofa, you can tune in at your own comfort. As you know, we love growing discussions with our guests from our AAPI and ethnic minority communities. With so many friends and experts from different aspects of life, we love learning their stories and understanding what their success means to them. Let's get into it. Dr. Sophia Yen is the co-founder and chief medical officer of Pandia Health, the only women-founded and women-led birth control delivery service, which has since expanded into menopause and acne services. She has more than 20 years of experience in medicine and graduated with a BS from MIT, MD from UCSF Medical School, and MPH from UC Berkeley in maternal child health. She serves as a clinical associate professor of pediatrics in the Division of Adolescent Medicine at Stanford Medical School and has co-founded 3 nonprofit organizations and projects in her endeavors to improve the lives of women: the Trust Women Silver Ribbon Campaign, SheHeroes.org, and the #FFF movement. Dr. Yen, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Like I said, I'm super excited to dive into all things periods, menopause, acne, and I'm sure people are, it's so excited about hearing about this. I never thought that I'd say that. So I wanted to dive right in because you have co-founded Pandia Health, and it talks about and centers around hormonal menstrual women's health. So why is that so important to you?
So it all began when I was Asian American pre-med in high school, and I was sexually active, and I was like, I cannot get pregnant in high school, college, medical school, residency, and I better have the right to confidential reproductive health care and to do whatever I need to do if anything bad goes down.
Yeah.
And so I've always been passionate about the right to comprehensive sex ed and reproductive health care. And
Absolutely.
then I became a physician. And I was giving a talk to a bunch of doctors. I am an academic and I teach other physicians how to best take care of young people, kick the parents out of the room, have some private time, talk about, sex, drugs, rock and roll, a little acne, some sports medicine. And the question came up, why don't women take their birth control? And one of the top reasons was didn't have it in their hand, didn't have time to run to the pharmacy every single month. And I realized, oh yeah, like for my entire life, I've been like, I got to get to the pharmacy, got to get to the pharmacy. And I actually coined the term #pill anxiety. And so if you picture the 3 rows of pills and then that last row, if you don't get to the pharmacy, there will be a dire consequence. And my friend and I were like, we could solve this. We will just ship women birth control and keep shipping it until they tell us to stop. And then we ran ads, free birth control delivery. And 60% of the people responded did not have a prescription. And it's like, don't you know you need a prescription in the United States for the pill, the patch, the ring? And I'm a doctor. I could write prescriptions. And thus the beginning of Pandia Health was born. If you have a prescription, you have insurance. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, Obama, Biden, you pay us nothing. And we just ship you birth control. And we include in every package, if you can see behind us, Haichu is our default candy.
Yes, that's very Asian. I love it.
It's delicious. And then sometimes we'll throw in makeup, a cuterus sticker, condoms. We have, female-founded, female-led companies or good companies that we partner with to give you some freebies. And then if you need a prescription, it's just $30 once a year to use our expert physicians with unlimited follow-up questions for an entire year with physicians, but only about birth control because you only paid $30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we needed more money, so we threw in acne. Anything we can prescribe beats anything you can get over the counter, strength-wise and efficacy-wise for acne. And then I hit menopause, and all my friends were like, menopause. And I'm like, yes, I will find the best treatment for me and I will share it with all of you. And so we want to be with people with uteri from their first, 2 years after their first period, 14 years old, throughout their entire lives.
Absolutely. And I have two daughters. And so, it is very tricky to have these conversations with our kids. And so I know there will be a lot of parents out there listening. A lot of my friends have younger children. I had children, before 30. And so what do you suggest in terms of even broaching this topic with your kids?
Yes. So part of it is I've come up with this thought leadership that anybody with a uterus, you don't have to bleed every month. And how amazing would that have been to get through high school, college, medical school, residency, and life without random blood 1 week out of 4? And as an adolescent medicine specialist, but also a mother of two teenage girls, 17 and 14, and a tiger mom, I ask you, is your young person going to do better on the SAT, bleeding or not bleeding? On her sport, bleeding, not bleeding. And just there's already enough drama, right? As a teenager with zits and moods and emotion. And imagine if we could help get rid of some of that zits and stabilize her hormones a little so that the rest of the drama can continue, but at least one less thing off her plate. Remember, always the fear of, oh my God, am I going to get my period? Do I have a tampon, a maxi pad in my backpack? So for the younger ones, I generally am not a fan of American Girl because they're trying to sell you a bunch of crazy stuff. But they have a really good book, The Care and Keeping of You. And so that one goes over the changes in your body, but also it has the most graphic, and it's not that graphic, how to use a tampon. Because as a woman of color, I realized that there's a giant race ethnic disparity in the use of tampons. If you go to our clinic, UCSF, Stanford, Children's Oakland, I'd say less than 5% of Asians, Blacks, and Latinas use tampons. And like 60 to 80% of Caucasians use tampons. And so I pitch it as, we came to this country to be equal to the white people. And if they're like 60 to 80% tampons, then we need to be there too. But also as a feminist, once you've tried the tampon, you're like, oh, no pad for me, man. That's like, night and day, such a revelation. And certainly if you can go straight to menstrual cup, or if you can go to the reusable panties, power to you. But I'm just trying to get people to do tampon. But you could go straight to cup and you could go to panty. But I think that the bloody panties, there's still that wetness touching factor that I'm not into.
Yeah. And so what do you see as kind of the barriers to young people using tampons and, I mean, creating equality and equity in terms of, people using it?
Yes. So, as I like to, because a lot of physicians were taught to be culturally sensitive. And I was like, there's nothing in the book of Asian, Black, or Latino that says you cannot use a tampon.
Sure.
There's certainly different cultures that are like, well, you have your hymen and you can't like mess with that. And so, first of all, to educate people on your biology, your hymen is not like a cribiform plate, like, mesh. It is just a ring around, and you probably can get that tampon through without touching the hymen. But the example I give is if your daughter was pouring blood out of her nose, you'd be like, no, you cannot stick a tampon up there because you're going to violate the sanctity of her nose. No, you wouldn't say that. And for me as a physician, it's about cleanliness. You can stop the blood where it originates versus letting it come out and ooze on your pillow, not your pillow, but your sheets, your blankets, your panties, and stuff like that. It's just a more efficient way to stop the blood, And what the barrier is for me too. I'm this radical feminist. I did not try tampons until I was 35. And my mom had pads, my grandma had pads, I was doing pads. Pads work fine. But once you try the tampon, and like for me, mainly it's the bleeding during the night. And certainly physicians will tell you don't wear a tampon at night. I was like, well, that's the whole purpose. Like I don't like the blood on the bed situation. So I'm telling you that generally we don't recommend more than 8 hours. And certainly teenagers, when they get a chance, will sleep 12 hours.
Right.
But if you think you're going to pull a 12-hour, put it in as soon as about to fall asleep. And then as soon as you wake up, run and take it out because the danger is bacteria growing in there. But really the barrier is trying it and knowing that it doesn't affect your virginity. And for me, redefining virginity as volitionally putting something up there for sexual pleasure, because I want people who've been sexually assaulted to also have the ability to have virginity,
That makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk about this tailored approach because Pandia Health really is focusing on finding the right fit for you in terms of medications or interventions. And, one of the big concerns among women across their lifespan is how are hormones going to impact my mood, my body. And I'm wondering if you can kind of walk me through the approach of Pandia Health.
Yes. So as a woman of color, I realized what we were teaching students across the nation worked great if you're a Caucasian female who wants to bleed every month, because all of medicine is based on a 70-kilo white man, and certainly not for birth control, but it's definitely not based on a person of Asian or Black descent, right? And we are generally taught in medical school, you pick one birth control pill and then you give that to everybody. And if it doesn't work, then have a backup. But I spoke to my fellow doctors of Asian and Black descent, and we're like, oh yeah, that pill that we said is wonderful and works for everybody and has the least amount of side effects doesn't apply to our people. And I was like, oh yeah, I had to go through 3 different birth control pills until I found one that had no side effects for me. And then every now and then I try that one that I'm teaching the medical students and residents to prescribe. And every single time I get the side effect. And I'm a doctor, I know how to take drugs. And I'm taking it according to instruction. And I'm still getting these side effects. And so I took my MIT, UCSF, Stanford brain and ranked all the birth control pills. Most likely make you bleed, least likely make you bleed. Most likely give you munchies, least likely give you munchies. Most likely give you zits, least likely give you zits. Took what we were teaching everybody across the nation, fixed it for the side effects that we're seeing in people of Asian and Black descent. And with that, we see 82% of people happy at a year with the first birth control pill that they've been given versus the standard is 30 to 55% of people are still on it at a year. And then also we do a 10-week follow-up with everybody. You good? Any bleeding? Any zits? Any munchies? If so, our doctors are trained on this algorithm that I came up with and like, oh, you got zits? Let's bump this down. Oh, you got breakthrough bleeding? Let's bump this up. And this is the next pill that you should try. But in general, most people are happy with the first one we give them. And right now we're using race as a proxy for genetics, but we're asking our patients, hey, do you have any DNA sequencing? Because if you do, you could upload it and then we can use it to study all of our patients and be like, everybody that has these 2 genes or these 3 genes seem to like this birth control. And then the next woman that shows up that gives us hers, we'd be like, oh, well, there was this person and she liked this and she liked that. So this is what we suggest for you.
Yeah.
So you're contributing to science.
That's awesome. And so, you're talking about DNA sequencing, and some people, obviously, we're talking about very controversial things, not to me and you, but I'm sure when we're releasing this, people are going to be like, blah, 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 right, on the keyboard. But where do people even get DNA sequencing and how can they contribute to science? Because there are many women who would like to do that.
I love it. So general DNA sequencing, direct to consumer, not whole genome sequencing, because that's everything in your body, every little base pair. What there is called SNPs, and they're just cutting up your DNA in little bits. And so they're not sequencing the whole thing, but just little bits of it, but enough of it to have a unique kind of identifier, thumbprint, et cetera. 23andMe, DNA ancestry. And then now there's more technology. You can actually sequence the entire whole genome. And so just Google, genome sequencing, and that's what you can do just for curiosity for yourself. A lot of us have done 23andMe, but the original data for 23andMe was Caucasians. It would be telling me stuff like Tay-Sachs or just stuff that I knew as a doctor does not apply to Asians. I was like, none of this is helpful to me, But as Asians, we need to contribute our DNA because otherwise we're going to be left behind and everything they find is not going to apply to us. And so if they're studying how does this drug work and we don't have enough Chinese people, not enough people from Vietnam, not enough people from Japan, not enough people from, South Asia, Southeast Asia, just different parts of it, then we're not going to have that data. And as Asians, I think we need to come together as a power politically, but genetically we are different. And the example I give is South Asians have a low HDL, which puts them at a higher risk of blood clots and heart attacks. Mm-hmm. Japanese have a high HDL. And so then I don't know where the rest of us fall, but I just know these 2 points. But if we don't contribute enough data, we don't know that. And if you average it, it looks fine. But the risk for each individual depends on your genetics. So to participate in the research, if you do one of those genetic things and you sign up for Pandia Health, we'll ask you if you want to participate in research and contribute to us. But there's also a national database that's trying to get diverse representation. And I think it's called All of Us. And it might be being run out of Color, which is another genetic sequencing company, I believe, direct to consumer.
Right. So thinking about, obviously, we're combining specialties today, and mental health is my jam. So thinking a little bit about menopause, periods, I hear a lot about hormonal changes, and I really want to hit upon those things because people report to me, especially my clients, hey, I'm snapping more at my partner the week before my period. I obviously, like for me, I feel like clawing people's eyes out the week before. And I know that's not me, but at the same time, I'm like, that's what I feel like. Don't talk to me. But that really takes us out for a week, right? And with menopause, I've had people who have been baseline, just very even, happy people, but it really shifts for them and they start encountering the depression, the anxiety, etc. So talk to me about like how mental health really intersects with these biological changes.
Absolutely. So on the period side, I know as physicians and healthcare practitioners, we've been like hammering it into women's heads. You must bleed every single month. And yes, if you're not on any medication to suppress your periods, change your periods, you should be bleeding every month or you need to see a doctor. The caveat of that is if you're within 2 years of your first period for your 12-year-old daughter, it could be totally whack and it's fine because that's just normal. Because I have all these little 12-year-olds on YouTube like, but what about me? And I was like, I wrote, if you're 12 within 2 years of your first period, it can be totally whack. But like, but what about me? And I was like, did you not read what I wrote? So anyway, within first 2 years, it can be totally whack. But after that, should come every single month. However, we have the science and technology to make #periods optional. And it's actually more natural to have fewer periods than we're currently having. And the example is by Dr. Beverly Strassman, who studies the Dogon tribe in Africa. They die the same time we do, 70 to 80, not like 30 to 70. And they have 100 periods in their lives. We have 350 to 400 periods in our lives. And part of the reason is nutrition. We start our periods at 12, they start their periods at 16. As soon as your body hits 100 pounds stably or 22% body fat, it's like, oh, I have enough nutrition. I'm going to make some babies. And so they don't have as much calories as we have in the United States. They only have 8 periods a year. We have 13 periods a year. But the more important part is they have 8 or 9 children. We have 2. They breastfeed for 12 months. We breastfeed for 0, 3, or 6 months. So how many periods do you have when you're pregnant? 0. How many
periods? That was the benefit of breastfeeding for me, actually. Because I'm like, I'm not getting this. This is, I mean, we'll talk more about that because that was a follow-up question for your, intersectionality as a mompreneur like myself. But yeah, that is a whole nother can of worms
Yes.
that
So
we will open.
that we will open next. But when you're exclusively breastfeeding, no periods, and that's the bonus of that. And so that's why they only have 100, and we have 315 to 400. And every time you build that lining, it can mutate and turn into uterine endometrial cancer. Every time we pop out the egg, and we don't know if it's the popping, the healing, or the tube, we think it has something to do with the tube, you increase your risk of ovarian cancer. So having that build and pop and build and pop up and down and up and down and up and down 350 to 400 times increases our risk of ovarian, endometrial, and colorectal cancer. So you can then prevent this up and down by being on the birth control pill, patch, ring, hormonal IUD, implant, and just keep your hormones stable. With the pill, it's 3 weeks and then drop. And that drop is totally arbitrary. It can happen once a month, every 3 months, every 6 months. I haven't bled since my last child 14 years ago. And then I just switched over to menopause replacement therapy because, as you mentioned, estrogen is so critical in the mental health of those of us who were born XX. Because when you take it away, then the brain changes the way it's kind of pruning and growing, and the synapses, and there's absolutely brain fog, which is the opposite of the brain fog that happens during pregnancy, but has to do with estrogen in the menopause side, the lack of estrogen, and then the irritability and the snappiness. Part of it maybe sleep deprivation, because if you like disturb someone's sleep, they're literally going to go crazy. The research has shown. And so if you have hot flashes, night sweats, need to get up in the middle of the night of pee, but really it's the hot flashes and night sweats that is disturbing those of us who've gone into menopause's sleep. And all of us are experiencing the brain fog of where are my keys? Where's my phone? My kids make fun of me. Like, thank goodness for Apple's function of where's my phone?
Well, you brought up so many great points. And, in my book, Cancel the Filter, I talk about what we put on social media is not necessarily what's going on. This is one of the most real conversations I've had because, we don't talk about this in daily society. You don't go to dinner, nor would some people like to talk about this over dinner, but very, very important. What is behind the scenes in these situations? And you shared, off camera that breastfeeding, being an entrepreneur, there's ups and downs. So what are some of your cancel the filter moments that you could share with us?
Well, for sure. I thought residency was the worst part of my life. So if you, I think
Yeah,
anybody,
I mean, it was, yeah, and I was pregnant during that time too. So,
my
oh boy,
goodness.
go ahead.
I thought that was the worst part of my life. And for those of you who aren't in the medical field, it's pulling an all-nighter every fourth night for 3 years in a row. And when I'm sleep deprived, I get crazy toxic. And so every fourth night on call, I'd be like filing incident reports like, oh my goodness, the nurse did not administer the medication. What the hell is the patient even in the hospital for if they're not going to get their medication? It's so really, really toxic. And sometimes I was like, I wish I could die. I really want to die. I want to die now, but being Asian, you suck it up and you get through the hell that is residency. And all of us that have the MD behind in our residency have gone through this horror. I thought that was horrible, but no, breastfeeding was even worse. It was every 2 to 3 hours for 3 months straight. And I look at my mother with like new eyes, like, you did this for 3 children? What the? And I had the luxury of staying home for 3 months. She went back to work probably within, a month at the most, but every 2 to 3 hours with no sleep. Just like horror. But as a pediatrician, I absolutely recommend breastfeeding. As an obesity expert, I absolutely recommend breastfeeding because it really helps you lose the post-pregnancy weight.
Yep.
I was able to eat a cupcake every single day and fit into my prom dress, which I had not, high school prom dress, while eating a cupcake every day because of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
But then after you wean the breastfeeding, you got to wean the cupcakes.
That's true. And, honestly, if you I want to add in if you can breastfeed, because I think a lot of women do feel guilt and shame if, they can't, or for physical reasons, but also mental health reasons, or they have to go back to work right away and it's just not feasible. But it is a commitment, and you do feel like a milk factory essentially. And so I think with that, it becomes an extra layer of complexity when you are not getting sleep and you are pretty much a food source. It can drain you. So that's definitely a very, very difficult situation. And like you said, depending on the duration, I think I was doing 8 months for my first and a
Wow.
year for my second, but it was shorter for my first because she was premature and wouldn't latch. And so it was just like, and then I was losing too much weight. So the nutrients weren't there, right? So there's all
You
these,
weren't eating enough cupcakes,
eh,
girlfriend.
yeah, I know. Well, I had gestational diabetes with her. And
Oh,
so it went away right away once I gave birth, but then it was just like, ooh, what is going on here? So talk to me about being a mompreneur though, because you mentioned the emotional roller coaster, the ups and downs. I mean, obviously, all the company that you've co-founded is has just such a great mission, so many great values, but it's tough being a women-led company, asking these VCs in the valley for funding. What, I mean, tell me
yeah.
about that ride.
That I am a woman, I am a doctor, I am a mother, I am older. All of these things are seen as negative in the entrepreneurial world. And I sometimes wonder if I had sent my husband, Asian American dude, MIT, Apple, money just falls from the sky. To see two other men founded, men led companies, 21-year-old dudes opening birth control companies, money falling from the sky, me going around begging with 10 times the amount of customers this original guy. So one guy got money from Y Combinator with no customers, just the idea, $1 million from the sky. Another guy shows up to another accelerator and he has like 40 customers. I have 150 customers. I am the only women founded, women led, doctor founded, doctor led companies. And I'm just begging for 500,000. And it was like pulling teeth and nails and whatnot to get that. But I actually think all of these negatives are positive. Being a woman, I understand the market. And being a mother, I can multitask. Being a doctor, I have domain expertise. I can create content like no one else can. Go check out all our YouTube videos. Go check out all of our blogs. You don't have to ask someone to consult. I immediately correct all the medical errors that you put out there, and I make sure that you're, legally safe. And then being older, all my friends are at the top of their game. They're the head of OB-GYN. They're the head of XYZ. They're the head of marketing. They're not just some 21-year-old straight out of college. My people have power. My people have connections. These should all be good things. But I could always sell to the executive assistant who scheduled the meeting, the person who greeted me, and they're like, oh my God, I totally need your product, And then you talk to this 70-year-old dude and he's like, I think my wife likes going to the pharmacy. How hard is it to go every month? And I was like, you try going to the pharmacy every single month from age 15 to 50. You think you're going to mess up a couple times? And then if you go one day early, the insurance company's like, I'm not going to pay for it. You got to come back tomorrow. And it's like, I have a job. I have children. I have duties. I don't have time to come back tomorrow. I'm here. It's Sunday. Please give me my drugs. Nope. It's the way the insurance rolls. And that was the whole point of Pandia Health is set it and forget it. Let us worry so you don't have to. We'll poke the insurance. Can we fill it now? Can we fill it now? How much can we fill? Let's fill as much as we can. Let us worry about that. Automate it. That's what technology is for, rather than you having just one thing off your plate. And we calculated women spend 10 weeks of their lives going to the pharmacy, waiting for the pharmacy, and coming back home. Again, reclaim that time, back for you. So getting funding, finding VC that understand the situation, know that only 2% of VC funded companies are women founded, women led. only 2% of VCs are women. And so we cannot expect all the women VCs to fund women. We need men to fund women. And now that I'd say the 50-year-olds get it because they're my generation and therefore should be cool, but who knows? And I've had great allies, males funding our company. So I definitely shout out to Precursor Ventures, Charles Hudson, love him. Thank you so much for believing in us. Electus Capital, thank you so much for believing in us. And then, LGBT, women of color friendly, Backstage Capital, Backstage Crowd. Thank you for all the small LPs in that and for funding and believing in us. And Arlen Hamilton is absolutely awesome as well. And Stanford StartX, Stanford's accelerator is so cool.
I mean, the things that you're talking about, you're so on point because I'm like, how could anyone turn you down with all the knowledge and just the kick-assery, that's a clinical term, that you have, right? I'm like, you should be on Shark Tank. Like I watch that all the time. But that is the reality of the experience that you've had. And so, many women of color become discouraged to be in the Valley and push forward with that, right? And I think you come with a sense of resilience because you've seen life basically and have been in all these different sectors. So what advice would you give for people just starting out in these ventures and not, even when they feel discouraged, to not give up?
I think it's really important to build your peer support, build your village. It's so useful to have a cohort, and that's what StartX offers you. They instantly have an email list, and you can be like, who has a good lawyer? Who has a good credit card, a good marketing person, a good this? And then there's VC-backed moms. It's a Slack group, but first you have to get VC funding to join them, which I feel is sad because all of us trying to get more VC or whatever can't enter it, but it's a great group because you can commiserate and be like, oh my God, my board is blah, 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 or oh my goodness, I'm investing in my company and my husband's going to kill me, stuff like that. Not that my husband would ever kill me. My husband is the greatest man, and my father and my brothers, my cousins, everybody's in because friends and family, you have to ask them first for money. But it's great to have other founders you can commune with in your misery, but also to have mentors, advisors. I'm not very good at it. I think us as Asians are always like, where do you have mentors? And I was like, I don't have any mentors. And I asked my husband, do you have any mentors? He didn't have any mentors because people don't see us as like them. And so they don't like take us under their wing or whatever like that. But we would love to be mentored. So please, everybody pick somebody and mentor them. And it doesn't have to be the same race, doesn't have to be the same gender, but whatever. I have a small company I invested in, and he meets with me every other week. And I don't want to set up a meeting with other people that could have been my advisors because I don't want to take up their time if I don't have an agenda. But then it stresses me out to put an agenda ahead of time, right? But this guy meets with me every other week and I give him free advice and help him. So know that there are people, definitely your investors, that want to give you advice. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. There's no shame in it. You don't know everything. And why reinvent the wheel? Why suffer? Skip the mistakes that other people have made and learn from them. And so definitely I recommend Stanford StartX Accelerator. They're amazing. I hear Skydeck at Berkeley is good, but I haven't personally tried that out. Oh, for those of us who are women, Springboard Enterprise is a nonprofit. They're great. They give you an amazing community. Another women one used to be called SheEO, but is now called Coralless. So Coral and then us, or Cora for heart is what I think that is, and us. And what that is, it's a nonprofit. People that are activators donate $1,100 per person joining, and they gather 500 of them. And then there's $500,000. They vote every year on 5 startups to give the money to. And then the startups are each given $100K interest-free to pay back over 4 or 5 years. And if your company makes it, it should be able to pay back $100K over 4 or 5 years with no interest. And then you pay the money back, and then they use it to fund more people in the future. So check out Corliss. They're a great group.
That's amazing. So, I mean, one of the questions that I have is because, again, back to teenagers and even adults as we struggle. I struggle with cystic acne, and my kid is so worried about
Aw.
getting little zits and stuff like that, right? And
Yes.
obviously it can impact your self-esteem and all those things. And so you mentioned that you have also started venturing into acne treatment. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about just what that arm of your company is doing now and how we can kind of guide women across the spectrum. Because people think, oh, well, adolescence is over. Why do I have to struggle with like skin issues? But
Yes. So, first line treatment for acne, if you look at all the reviews by dermatologists, how do we treat acne? First line treatment is a retinoid. So Retin-A used to be old brand, but the generic is tretinoin. The really crazy strong retinoid is the one you take by mouth, and that's called Accutane. And Accutane is amazing, but it's really, really strong.
it's tough.
And yeah, kind of pricey, but look at all the before and after pictures. Amazing. But if you're just, everyday kind of acne, which like 80% of us get some point in their life, then a retinoid is what you need. And there is a Dapoline, which is over the counter. You can get at Costco, but you want prescription tretinoin is the first line. And then you definitely want to add some benzoyl peroxide because benzoyl peroxide will kill all the bacteria that causes acne. And you can do that as a wash or a soap. The key tip here that you get for listening to this podcast today: don't use the retinoid and the benzoyl peroxide or salicylic acid or any kind of acid at the exact same time. Because if you use it at the exact same time, the acid kills the retinoid and you just wasted the retinoid. And so we start everybody up on a retinoid, and then we tell them benzoyl peroxide. And then if they have like redness to it, inflammation, then we add a topical antibiotic. And then if you have chest or back acne, I think the odds of you putting on all these creams is low. And so we then throw on some oral antibiotics to calm this thing down. And then if it's like horrible cystic scarring stuff, then you have to fail all three of these for 3 months before any good physician would even consider putting you on Accutane. But Pandia Health is there for that. We don't do Accutane. You're going to have to go see a dermatologist for Accutane. But we can take you up to that point. And most people don't need Accutane. 90% of people don't need it. And then if you notice that your acne happens with your periods, that happened to me. I'd get the North Star once a month. It'd be here, here, or here. Giant zit. And so not only do I have a giant zit, but then I have blood, and then I have either diarrhea or constipation. I was like, this is all literally crap, man, crap. And so once you turn off the periods or make your hormones stable, the estrogen in the birth control pills increases sex hormone binding globulin. So that gobbles up all the testosterone, which is making you have more zits. And then the progesterone, also the second part of the birth control pill, also has binding qualities as well. So if you go on the birth control pill, any birth control pill, it should improve your acne. And if you get one always at the same time of your period, if we smooth the hormone out, no more acne after I started on birth control pills. And then as you get older, definitely most of the acne is in your 18, your teen years, like 12 to 20. Some people have adult 10, 20% persist. And then some of us, when you hit menopause, it comes back because they call it the second puberty, in that your hormones are whacking weird and you can get more man hormone, more woman hormone, blah, blah, blah. That's perimenopause. So like up to 10 years before menopause, and average age of menopause is 52. So if you start like hormones being weird, just go on the birth control pill, patch ring, and keep your hormones stable so you don't have this weirdness. I like to think of menopause as kind of running out of gas, and you can either run out of gas, or I've heard the horror stories of flooding. No one talks about this. Blah, blah. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Does this only happen once? And they're like, oh no, it happened to me 5 times. And there was a time that I couldn't go to any friend's house because I'd be afraid I'd destroy their couch. And I was like, oh, that's horrifying. As a physician, I can do drugs. I can give you science to take care of that. Like after the first one, you should have come see me, And if we put you on the pill, patch, ring, IUD, implant, shot before you enter that situation, it may never happen to you, Let's make your life beautiful. Let's not ruin somebody's white sofa, couch, or chair.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it really sounds like you can help and have already helped so many women deal with these issues. And so, where can people learn more about Pandia Health and how easy is it to start the services?
Amazing. Yes. So for birth control, it's $30 once a year, unlimited follow-up. We can prescribe in 16 states that covers 70% of the United States population. We encourage birth control tourism. So the example is we're not in New Jersey and Connecticut, but we are in New York. Who doesn't get in New York once a year? And as long as you're like, I'm in New York right now, then legally our New York doctor can take care of your prescription and then we can deliver it to all 50 states. And you just got to get back to one of our 16 states or more as we get more money, more funding, once a year for that follow-up kind of situation. And we're purposely in the biggest states, California, Florida, Texas. So if you go to either of the Disneys, or if you go to Vegas, or we're in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, just so many states, 16 states, come on. And then we can deliver to all 50 states. So if you have a prescription, you have insurance, and your doctor wrote it, then we can just move it from your pharmacy to our pharmacy. You pay us nothing. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, no copay, no deductible, unless you're like, I want a specific brand name when your insurance will only cover generic. Then you have to pay the difference, you know. For menopause, it's currently $130 for the initial visit and then $60 per follow-up. But if you like what we did here and you have no problems and we're like, time for follow-up, you'd be like, I don't need the follow-up, just continue the medication. And we bill your insurance for it. Oftentimes there's a copay because they haven't passed a law for that. And I'm working on getting a law passed for that because I say if you don't cover menopause with no copay, no deductible, then you're sexist and ageist. So let's get Biden, Harris to cover that, or our Congress. That would be a great thing. And then to find us, Pandia is the Greek goddess of healing, light, full moon. But then I made up to help you all know how to spell it. Pan is every and dia is day. We want to be with you every day. So Pandia Health on all the socials, TikTok, Insta, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And then for menopause, we have Pandia Menopause. And then I'm trying to build up my TikTok, and my Insta isn't the greatest thing, but Dr. Sophia Yen, Dr. Sophia, Sophia, Yen, Yen on TikTok and Insta.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I can't wait to release the episode so more people can start these conversations about periods, menopause, and acne. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and join our community on all our socials at colorsuccesspodcast.com. Looking forward to you checking out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color on Amazon and wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear your Cancel the Filter moments.